What's going on, everybody? Stock Picks by Tim here, and I'm going to talk about Bionano Genomics, or Bngo, and I'm going to feature a couple of clips here from the fireside chat. This is at the 2022 Virtual Growth Conference. The full video is about a half an hour long, but I'll leave you a link below in the description if you want to watch the full thing. Make sure you check out the links below for some free crypto and stocks. And looking at Bngo real quick on the chart first, you'll see that it broke the 300 MA, and it did find some resistance here at about 285. Now I want to see it develop this 263 to 271 area as a support, start resetting that RSI, and on a future green day, we can push higher, break out of that 280 level. But it looks like the momentum is starting to shift here on Bngo. Now moving past technicals, let's take a look at this first clip, and this is going to feature the CEO explaining OGM, or optical genome mapping, kind of in a book analogy. I really like how he explains it that way. And he also briefly talks about the growth of the Sapphire system, so let's roll the clip.
We have really made a ton of progress in, I would say, clearing the path for broader and broader adoption and commercialization of optical genome mapping. And to put some numbers to it, we finished the year last year, $18 million in revenues and 164 Sapphire systems installed as of December 31st, 2021. And that exceeded our goal of 150 for the year and represents about 65% year-over-year growth in the installed base. We doubled the number of consumable flow cells that were sold into the market. And so what it means is that people are adopting the methodology and the system to perform it in-house, and then they are using it, right? So those two things in combination form the basis of what we believe will be a big business in genome analysis and a big revenue driver. But because of the consumables pull through, there will be, it's going to be a profitable business for us. Sequencing is great. This is a very, very powerful tool, which is being used all over the place in amazing ways. And what sequencing does today, the modern version of it, is it builds a copy of DNA one base pair at a time. And so when it builds that copy, and then you can read, it's just like writing a word, like you spell the word one letter at a time, and when it's done, you can read it. And if a letter is misspelled, if the word is misspelled because the letter is wrong, you can detect that. But what begins to happen is that copying process can only go so far. So you don't get like a full sentence when you're sequencing DNA. And so that collection of words, that could fit anywhere in the book. It's hard to determine it just based on that small copy that you make. Short read sequencing, and then long read sequencing can do a little bit better. But with optical genome mapping, it's really like having a whole page in the book. So sequencing, next generation sequencing that Illumina sells might be like spelling out a couple of words. Long read sequencing might be getting a whole sentence. We have the whole page. And the idea is that the story in the book really does require that you have the words in the right paragraph, in the right page, in the right chapter in the book. And so when you have a whole page, it helps you determine if things have been rearranged. And that's what structural variation is. If a page has been torn out of the book and is missing, that's going to be pretty obvious. Turns out sequencers can't pick that up. If it's been rearranged to a new chapter, we can pick that up with mapping, but you can't pick it up with sequencing because of this sort of short read. Now, in biology, it can be very, very, very significant if you have these large rearrangements. And that's what cancer testing is all about today. People use karyotyping to get a very gross macro look at whether the genome at the chromosomal level has been rearranged. And the resolution of karyotyping is about 5 million base pairs. We increased that resolution down to 500 base pairs. So much, much higher resolution to pick up these large structural rearrangements, which are critical in cancer and play a big role in genetic diseases as well. And so optical genome mapping provides you with the structural organization of information in the genome, and sequencing is your spell checker. Sometimes you only need a spell checker, that's fine. Sometimes you only need a structural map, that's fine. But when you think about it, as we get into this more refined, higher resolution medicine, you're going to need both. Our approach is to not look at each individual word, but to look at them strung together in long paragraphs or chapters, and then it becomes obvious where it fits.
And this next part is going to be about a customer that witnessed an increased efficiency and a reorganized workflow by using the Sapphire system.
Your time to a reportable result is incredibly fast. A lot of times labs will say, I don't need to see more variants, but the variants that we're finding or being found by our end users are incredibly impactful. The idea, again, of complementing sequencing is very powerful, and it's incredibly meaningful in the clinic because people will get treatments that they otherwise wouldn't get, and that's saving lives. We have a customer in Belgium that developed a laboratory developed test for pediatric leukemia, and they put karyotyping, used to be the first thing that they do. They still run it for confirmatory reasons, but they put it at the end. They used to do 10 fish assays. Now they only do one, the BCR-ABL assay. So they eliminated 9 fish assays. They used to do multiplex ligation probe assay, MLPA. They don't do it anymore. They used to do a handful of PCR assays. They don't do them anymore. So optical genome mapping completely reorganized that workflow. And so we say it's the future of cytogenetics through a process of consolidating these workflows and automating and industrializing some of the traditional methods.
And this next clip tells us that they hope to reach 240 systems end of year, and they're also working on their recent Index Clinical acquisition. And let's roll that clip.
So we're seeking to get from 164 at the end of 2021 to 240 by the end of this year. And we're going to be focusing on reimbursement by applying for a Category 1 CPT code. We'll continue to advance our next generation optical genome mapping instrument. And so we'll have a system in the field by the end of the year, like a pre-commercial system, beta system, think of it as that. And, our clinical trials, which that's where I got cut off, but important clinical trials to serve the medical societies that set guidelines, as well as the third-party payers that determine coverage for reimbursement. We're going to progress those, and we're going to launch a version of NX Clinical in the second half of the year that incorporates optical genome mapping. And we've already given a little bit of a taste of this out there. So some folks have been talking about OGM in NX Clinical, but that's going to be a full-fledged commercial version in the second half of this year. So a lot of great progress in commercial and product development and then market development.